Hey guys, what's going on? Today doing the what's next on Daniel Jacobs, former two-time middleweight world champion. He returned and fought in the main event of a DAZN card on Friday, December 20th, when he took on former middleweight champion Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. This fight was supposed to be a full-on super middleweight fight at 168. It was Danny Jacobs' debut at 168. Now, Jacobs made the weight. He came in just under 168, 167 point something. But, of course, Chavez, the most undisciplined motherfucker of all time. I'm sorry, I can't stand Julio Cesar Chavez. This guy came in 172 point something. So, he didn't lose the weight. He got penalized and fined. And, but Danny Jacobs, you know, to his credit, could have taken on Gabriel Rosado, former world title challenger, a very credible opponent. He could have faced him instead, you know, because Rosado would have made weight. He decided, hey, Chavez, even though he's bigger, he's the bigger name, and, you know, he'll take him on. So you got to give him credit for getting in the ring with a guy that big. He took some shots, but Danny pretty much outworked and was hitting Chavez with some good shots and winning the fight. And in the fifth round, Chavez cited that his nose was fractured or broken, couldn't breathe out of it after the fifth round. And, yeah, the referee waved out the fight. Chavez pretty much quit because of that. And Danny Jacobs wins his debut at super middleweight. So now the big question is, what's next for Daniel Jacobs, the former two-time middleweight world champion? Well, he is full-on at super middleweight now, 168. He said he could make 160 if it was a big enough fight, but he said he feels a lot more comfortable at 168, and this is where he'll be fighting. So let's run through the top 10. Currently, heading into my new top 10 that starts at the beginning of the year, Jacobs is going to be number 2. So let's take a look and see. Let's start with number 1, undefeated WBA super champion, Callum Smith. Is this possible? Absolutely. Callum Smith and Danny Jacobs are both matchroom fighters. So the only thing stopping it is if one or both of them do not have to fight or do not want to fight. Callum Smith recently got tabbed as the next in line to fight for the WBC title. But he might have to wait around for that fight because Benavidez and Yildirim were supposed to fight in January in a mandatory title fight. Now that fight's getting pushed back. So does Callum Smith want to wait longer? He's already had enough time off. So I really don't think Callum Smith is going to go after the WBC title next. I think he wants something bigger. Plus, Danny Jacobs is a bigger name anyway. So could he face Danny Jacobs next? And the answer is yes. The guy who's controlling this fight, though, is going to be Jacobs. He's the A side in this fight, unfortunately, for Callum Smith. So I think Callum Smith would fight Danny in a heartbeat. Danny's got to want to fight. I don't think he's going to be shy. I think he could take this fight for sure next. We got to wait and see. But Smith did not look good in his last one. Danny might want to go after a world title right away. We got to wait and see. But this fight is very, very possible. Again, Danny's number 2, so let's jump to number 3. And that's undefeated WBC champion David Benavidez. This fight's not going to happen next. You got Benavidez has a mandatory defense due against Avni Yildirim next. And I think that's probably just going to collide when Danny Jacobs wants to return. And then also you got, this one's DAZN working with the PBC, which isn't impossible, but I think there's enough options with Matchroom for Eddie Hearn to try to make another fight. And I think Danny wants to test himself out at 168 before he faces a fast, big power puncher like Benavidez. So I don't see it. Next up at number 4 is Billy Joe Saunders, the undefeated WBO champion. Can this fight happen next? Absolutely it could. Again, these guys are both promoted by DAZN and Matchroom. They're both with the same promoter. They fight on the same network. It's going to come down to if they want the fight or not. I believe Billy Joe Saunders wants this fight for sure. I think Danny would fight Billy Joe, but to be honest, I think he'd prefer Callum Smith just because of a style matchup. But then again, Billy Joe did not look great. Danny would be taller than Billy Joe, I believe, going into the fight. Callum Smith's a taller fighter, so I think this fight's got some legs to it. I really do think this is possible. It's for a world title. Why not? Danny Jacobs could definitely take this fight, and it definitely could happen. So stay tuned because I really believe this is a big-time option for Danny. And Billy Joe didn't look too good in his last 2 fights. So, you know, we'll see. Next at number 5 is undefeated Caleb Plant, IBF champion Caleb Plant. Well, Plant's making a mandatory defense of his IBF title in February. Then I think he would be open for a fight. But again, this is a slick kind of stand back and box type fighter right here. He's not as well known, and again, it's Matchroom working with the PBC. Again, not impossible, but I think Danny, he's got better options with Matchroom, even bigger name options. And I think he'd probably prefer to go that route. So I don't see the Caleb Plant fight happening next for Danny, but, you know, I'm not really ruling anything out for him, though. Next at number 6 is former 2-time champion Anthony Durrell. I think Durrell would be into fighting Danny because of the name recognition, but I'm not sure if Danny would be into this fight. I think he's looking for world titles and bigger names. And, you know, maybe it'd be a good test for him if they could make the fight happen. But again, it's Matchroom working with PBC. Not impossible, but I just don't think that's going to be Danny's first option, but it definitely could happen. Next up is number 7, former IBF champion Caleb Truax. Truax is returning in January. You know, he's taking an optional defense in January. So could he fight Danny after that? Yeah, I mean, if Danny wanted to, and I think this is a good choice in terms of, actually, I think Truax fought Danny already, didn't he? Yeah, he actually fought Danny and got knocked out. I believe so. Or was that, I know Jermaine Taylor, no, it was. I think, yeah, Danny knocked Truax out in the first round. This will be a rematch. I don't think Danny wants to go down that road again. He could, just to kind of give Caleb another chance, but I don't think he does. So, yeah, sorry about that brain fart right there, but it was quite a few years ago when they fought, and Danny kind of whipped his ass quick. If I'm wrong on that, I will correct myself. I'll go back and take a look. Next at number 8 is new in the division, Lionel Thompson. Kind of came out of nowhere just last night and beat Jose Uzcategui, the former champ. And, you know, I just think he's too much of a mover and boxer and not a big enough name. And he's coming down from light heavyweight also. He can take a punch. So I don't see Danny taking a risk against a guy like Thompson next. Number 9 is Avni Yildirim. Yildirim's in line to fight Benavidez for the WBC title next. If he were to upset Benavidez, that'd be one thing, but I don't think he stands a chance to upset Benavidez. I think Benavidez is going to knock his ass out, and so I don't see him fighting Danny next. And then after that is number 10, John Ryder of the United Kingdom. You know what? I wouldn't completely rule this fight out if Danny decided he didn't want to go after one of the 2 world titles. Ryder just fought Callum Smith, and he fought his ass hard and almost beat him. It was a good fight. The judges really scored it one-sided for Callum Smith, and it should have been scored it should have been scored a lot closer, and John Ryder might have pulled this one out. It was a close one. So Danny might look at that and say, you know what, I can whip this guy's ass, I'll fight him and prove how good I am next instead of taking on a title fight. So may not be his first choice, but I'm not completely ruling it out. So that's where we stand for Danny Jacobs now. You know, the move up to 168 is a really good move for Danny because he's got pull here. He's a name. He's a guy that now that he's moving up, you know, he not only does he have a name, some of the guys there might look at him like, hey, you know, he's moving up in weight, excuse me. He's moving up in weight. We might be able to knock this guy out, you know, because he's not used to the weight class. So there might be some guys overlooking him, but also he is a star. He's got star power, you know. He's a really good fighter. So I think some of the guys, you know, some of these fighters, people are going to want to see, you know, go after Danny and Danny take on. And Danny's kind of got, you know, but he can kind of call the ones that he wants to fight next. He's not a champion right now, but he can pick the champions because they're all hungry, ready for a big fight and ready to take over the division. And Danny wants to throw his name in that mix. I think he should. And I really hope he takes one of the 2 champions. I want to see him against Callum Smith or Billy Joe Saunders next. But if he wants to take one more, you know, tune-up fight, so to speak, or stay busy fight, I would go after John Ryder if he wants to stick with top 10 fighters. So we'll see. But all right, guys, that's the what's next on former 2-time middleweight champion Daniel Jacobs. True Boxing, you've been hit with the truth.